Welcome to Kick 'Em in the Head, a podcast that takes an inside look at the world of mixed martial arts, featuring interviews with some of the top fighters from South Africa and around the world, with a focus on the EFC and UFC promotions. I'm your host, Yao. Join us as we delve deep into the techniques, strategies, and mindsets of these world-class athletes, learning from their experiences and gaining insights into what it takes to succeed in the toughest sport on earth. Welcome to the Kick 'Em in the Head podcast. And as always, we're talking all things MMA. Today, we have a special guest host, Stephan DQ Delaray from Team CIT in Pretoria. Stephan, welcome to the Kick 'Em in the Head podcast.
Thank you so much for having me again.
Awesome. And I think with what we're doing today, I'm really excited to hear your views on upcoming events and your views on previous events that obviously we had engaged at, and basically talk about the tapestry of what's happening in MMA, not only in South Africa, but across the world.
No, awesome. Let's get into it, man.
So starting with EFC 110. And I think for me, this card is so packed that I'm so excited. Like, I am so excited for 110. And let's start with the title fight, simply because it's Mark Hulme who comes from Team CIT, your team. Let's chat more about that. What are your views on this fight? How do you see him going up against Peace Ngapani from House of Tinkerbell? We know they've got JP Kruger, the interim middleweight champion, there with the title. They've got Gift Walker, also a title holder. So he's coming from a gym that also has pedigree. So how are you guys feeling about this fight?
Yeah, no, he definitely comes from a gym with proper pedigree, and a gym that we have a great relationship with. JP specifically, I think he's a fantastic guy, and he really looks after his guys, and a fantastic athlete himself. But when it comes to Mark Hulme, he's just on a different level. The way he goes about his training, the way he goes about his career, and the duration that he's been in the sport, it's just on another level. You know, he's a super motivated guy. He had a super great camp. You know, he's had a lot of adversity in the past, specifically in fight camps and not getting to the fights healthy. And we haven't had a problem this camp at all. His confidence is through the roof, and I really believe Mark is going to finish this fight.
Amazing. I think, as you're saying, with the pedigree that Mark also has, he's just come from fighting. I think he was last at in UAE, fighting up there. So he's been taking international fights as well. He's been keeping very active. So it'll be very interesting to see how he brings all that international experience over and above his title to the fight.
Yeah, so he's not only just fought in Dubai and Abu Dhabi and the UAE. You know, he was contracted to ACA, and he was fighting in the pits. He was fighting killers over there for a long time, and he built himself up to one of the top contenders in one of the toughest promotions on the planet. And that pretty much sums up Mark for me. He is one of he might be the most savage, toughest person I've ever met in my life, and he thrives under adversity. So he's also competed at and won world championship jiu-jitsu in Abu Dhabi a couple of years ago. So the experience he brings to the table is very, very difficult to match. And I think that'll be easy to see on the night. He's been active, he's been training, he's been competing. So he's really in the best space he's ever been. So I think all of that's going to translate next Thursday.
And it's going to be an amazing fight, honestly, because we've obviously seen Peace as well. Peace has been doing his part in the EFC, on the local scene, also keeping himself very, very active at all the events. So, yeah, that's going to be an absolute banger. But also on the card, the other fight that I want to talk about is Mulenga versus Kabanda. Oh, Humphrey Mulenga.
Yeah,
Humphrey
is amazing. Humphrey's amazing. His mentality, his physicality is, you know, I'm a really, really big fan of Humphrey. Kabanda, as tough as they come, really, really good guy. Really, you know, takes it seriously, tough guy, good at what he does. But I just believe, you know, Humphrey's just on a different level. Humphrey's just on a different level. He takes it as seriously as anybody that I know. He comes from a great team and a great camp. and I really believe he's going to make it look easy. And it's nothing against Kabanda. I just believe, he's the next generation of athlete who's been putting in the work and proving himself. He's also ridiculously big for the weight class, which makes it difficult to deal with him. He's well-rounded, on the feet, on the floor. Like, he's just got it all in my opinion. So I've got him in that fight for sure.
And I think it's quite interesting because obviously we know that Mikishi was the reigning champion, but he obviously didn't take up the challenge, and now it's for the vacant lightweight championship. So yeah, that's a very exciting fight because then we're finally going to have what we'll hope will then be an active lightweight champion, which we haven't had in a while at the EFC.
Yeah, no, it's been in that division. It's been a bit wishy-washy for a couple of years now with Joe Cummins and COVID and interim titles and this and that. I believe a great fight would be Humphrey and Chilo Mikishi. I think that'll be an amazing fight. I'm also a big Chilo Mikishi fan. He always brings it. He's always prepared. So I believe Humphrey will get this done, and then I believe that's the next match to make. I think that's the fight to make if the UFC can get it done. I don't know why, what the reason is that he's not fighting. But I believe that's the next fight to make, and I know Humphrey he's on the upwards trajectory, and he's not stopping for anything. He's not going to sit around and wait for someone. He really wants to compete, and he wants to compete often. So I think that's going to be a fresh new look to the lightweight division in the UFC.
100%. And if we look at how many times Humphreys fought this year alone, I think personally I've seen him fight 4 times this year, and people are looking at a fighter called Lupi Godinez in the UFC who's also had 4 fights in 7 months this year. And for me, he's on the exact same level. Like you said, he's a meteorite that is just an unstoppable force that's looking to come and take over everything he can get his hands on.
Yeah, he just wants it all, man. He loves to compete, that guy. He just loves it. And he just puts on such dominant performances. And I think that's a testament not only to his skill and his work ethic and everything he puts in, but he's got this swagger and confidence about him that he just believes that he's the best. And I think in our sport that takes you a lot further than you think. Like the confidence that he walks in there with, and the intensity that he comes with. There's no hesitation in what he does. So he's just been ramming through guys since his pro career started, which I was privileged enough to be there when he made his debut. I was in awe, and it was, if I'm not mistaken, it was in Abu Dhabi as well. And I didn't know him very well then. I saw him in the warm-ups and in the training in the week before the fight, and I was really impressed. Then he put on that show, and that was just his coming out party, and he just went on a tear. And I don't believe the tear is going to stop soon.
No, and based on his last mauling of the Hitman, it's definitely not stopping anytime soon.
No, moving like finishing Cole like that, me and Cole have a great relationship, and I really rate him as an athlete. I think he's fantastic. So to see Humphrey do that to a fighter like Cole Henning, it really, like, every time I see him, I'm just like, it's another level above what I thought, and I'm done being surprised with how good he is.
Yeah, honestly, that because Cole is so good, and Cole had just come off that win against Tapio Katikati, which is a fantastic win. So just like he mauled him, and we're definitely going to see the Hitman back, I'm sure. But yeah, I think Humphrey's on his way to the top. Speaking of the top, 2 returning former champions are about to duke it out. The Ghost versus the Gladiator. Sindile Manengela versus Sylvester Shifambo for the bantamweight bout in the EFC.
Other than Mark's fights, this is the fight that I'm most excited for, without a doubt. It's 2 guys that I'm such huge fans of both. They're such great human beings, both of them. But when you lock them in there, they're just total savages. The contradiction in styles is going to be interesting, with Sylvester coming with that fantastic striking base, and Sindile obviously from Mr. Chris Bright's gym with that amazing grappling base. I think that is going to be the fight to watch, and that's going to be it's not a fight that I'm willing to make a prediction on. It's going to be an amazing fight, and I'm super excited to watch them duke it out. It's almost sad that one of them is going to have to lose, in my opinion. You know, like it's two of these guys that I've been watching forever and who I respect so much. So it's kind of bittersweet. I'm so happy to see them fight, but it's so sad that one of them is going to have to lose. But I'm super excited for that fight, and I think that's going to be a barn burner for sure.
Interesting thing. I think I'm going to put my head on the stake simply based on statistics here. So Manengela is 8-8. Chifambu's 9-5. Manengela's 38. Chifambu's 26. Based on that, I'm going to swing towards the Gladiator simply because of the numbers.
I understand what you're saying, but numbers don't win you fights.
This is true.
And Sindile has proven over the years. I mean, a lot of the losses in Sindile's career were very early in his career. He's, when he was still coming up and he was still figuring himself out and working at. And when we're talking about Sindile's age, that's not a factor to me at all. He really looks after himself. He really trains hard, and I still believe he's at the top of his game. So, I'm really honestly, I'm not willing to make a prediction on that fight at all. I think it's going to be one of the coolest fights ever, and I'm just privileged enough to be there cage side to watch them fight.
I think we'll definitely have a chat after that fight and see which way it's gone.
Yeah,
and
for
then,
sure.
Then the big one. Smiley, Igor Cabeza, is back in action against the former champion, Ronaldo Exon, who's come back to the EFC. And we're starting to see a trend of, especially the Brazilian fighters, coming back to the EFC and former champions coming back to the EFC for fights. And I think that's amazing for the profile of the EFC and also for the profile of the fighters that they're fighting, because they've chosen to come back rather than other international organizations. So this is another major fight. And I'm looking forward to this one because with the Sport Locker deal that EFC has, this sends this fight straight into Brazil, hopefully making Igor an international star and getting him to where he needs to be at the international level, basically.
Yeah, like I believe he is on international level. When we're talking about skill-wise and what he's done in the sport and what he's achieved, I don't see any reason why that should be questioned, that he's on an international level, and he should have international stardom without a doubt. When it comes to that fight, Ronaldo is really good. He's really experienced. He's got a lot up his sleeve, and he's well-rounded. He can fight anywhere, but so can Igor. And there's one thing that I know about Igor is you can beat him once, you won't beat him again. And I really believe that he's made the right corrections in his game. He got caught in the previous fight. He made a small mistake. He did that front leg side kick to the leg, missed and got clipped. And that started the whole sequence. He was still doing brilliantly to get out of that submission. Eventually he got him caught. I don't see that happening again. And I really believe that Igor's going to pull this one through. So my money's on Igor Cabeza for that fight. I know where he is now mentally. He's a bit older now. He's a bit more focused. Where his priorities has changed. And I really believe he's taking this as serious as ever, making the corrections. And I see Igor going home with a belt on Thursday.
That's going to be an amazing fight night at EFC 110 coming next Thursday.
It's crazy.
It's going to be
such a stacked card, man. I'm so glad I'm going to be there.
I think kudos to Graham and the EFC for putting this card together because, like you said, it's absolutely stacked. We didn't go into the prelims. We even missed one fight on the card, which is Morel versus Laters. And even if you look at the prelims, stacked as well. So definitely next week, Thursday, is going to be phenomenal.
Yeah, I'm super excited, man. But yeah, kudos to EFC, Graham, and all the guys. Ashley Calvert.
Ashley, that's right.
Now. So congratulations for putting that card together. It's a brilliant card. The entertainment value is going to be through the roof, and I'm super excited to be there and watch it live.
And it's a good way to end the year. Speaking of moving towards year end, we have a UFC Fight Night coming up this Saturday, UFC Austin, where the headliner is Beneil Dariush versus Arman Tsarukyan. How are you feeling about that one?
It's going to be it's also one of those fights that I'm super excited for. I really Beneil is so crafty. He's so crafty, and he's so smart with such a high fight IQ. But I believe Tsarukyan's going to be a little bit too much for him. He's super athletic. He's also super well-rounded, and he is a certified savage. So it's a difficult one to call. Once again, I'm glad I'm a fan and I don't have to make any decisions on that fight. But if I had to bet money, I'm leaning towards Arman Tsarukyan for that fight, definitely.
Yeah, it's number 8, number 4. Tsarukyan, like you said, rounded. He's got the hunger to get into the top 5 and maybe get a title shot. So yeah, it's going to be a very, very fun fight.
Yeah, I'm super excited for that. Super excited for that fight. The styles match up so well as well.
They really do. A few other fights on this card that are quite interesting. The legend Clay Guida, Mr. Fighting himself, is back in action against Joaquim Silva. And as far as I know, Clay is just trying to make sure that his record is unbeaten. I think he's 38-20, so he's got over 50 fights in the UFC, 50 professional MMA fights, and he's literally a legend. So it's going to be good to see him in action again, still fighting. Yeah,
no, he really is an icon in the sport. You know, the long hair and the fights that he's put up over the years. It's crazy to think that he's still in the mix and he's still fighting at the highest level there is. So I'm super excited to watch that fight. Hopefully he gets it done. I've been a fan since I can remember. So to see the old guard, someone like Clay Guida, still in the mix and still competing at that level, still taking fights and still getting there healthy, fit, and not scared to go in there and throw down is so cool to see. And, you know, it's inspiring to a lot of us, I think, as well, to think, to realize that, hey, it's all in your mind. If you want to keep on competing and you look after your body, you can. You know, it's not necessarily smart in every sense of the way, every sense of competing at that age if you are not fit and healthy, but he is. So it's awesome for me to see him fight and still compete and still perform at the level that he does at his age and how long he's been there. You know, he's been through about 2 revolutions in the sport of how the sport has changed and what's important skill wise, and he just adapts to everything. So I'm a huge fan, and I'm glad that we can watch him fight again.
Another interesting fight on this card is number 2 versus number 8 in the, I think it's featherweight division. Davison Figueiredo versus Rob Font. Davison back in action, obviously after his previous loss to Brandon Moreno when he lost the title. He had that whole 4-fight quadrilogy with Brandon Moreno, and now he's still number 2, looking obviously to get back into a title shot because now there is a new champion in this division.
Yeah, I think it's a very, very smart move from Davison to move up in weight. I think it's a smart move. I know he was cutting a lot of weight to make it. So
55 now.
Rob Font's really, really good. I think he's a well-rounded guy. I think he's a savage. He comes forward, he fights well, he's good everywhere. But I think Davidson is going to be too much for him, specifically without being that depleted, in that weight class. They're fighting a weight class up, right?
Yes, 145. He's gone up from 135. That's right.
Isn't it 135? And he came up from 125?
Oh. Okay, one of the two. I stand to be correct with that one. Yeah.
But he went up a weight class, and I think that was a really smart move. I know how tough it was for that man to make the weights, and if you haven't done a weight cut before, you definitely will not understand how tough that is on your body and how much that affects your performance. So going through that intense weight cut, making that weight and still performing the way he performed, and had, as you said, that amazing quadrilogy with Brandon Moreno, I think it is going to be the best version of him, one class up. So I'm super excited to see that and to see how the change in weight affects him, if it's going to be a positive or negative. I honestly believe it's going to be a positive, and I think he's going to be too much for Rob Font.
I call him Rob No Eyes Font because as soon as you give him a 1-2 right on his brow, his eyes swell right up. But I love Rob Font as well.
Yeah, no, but that's the way he fights, man. it's such a cool fight as well, because none of them are there to score points. They're there to finish, both of them. And that's, us as fight fans, that's what we want to see. We want to see two guys get in there and try and murder one another until one gets knocked out or gets submitted. I'm not a fan of trying to play the points game and trying to outpoint the guy and do just enough to win the fight. And neither one of them are those athletes. So I'm super excited to see that fight. And honestly, I'm not going to be upset if Rob Font takes the win. I just don't think he's going to.
Fair enough. The other legend on this card that I really have to mention, because I'm a bit of a fan, is Bobby Green. He's fighting against Jalen Turner. Bobby Green is another legend, 31-14 record. He's been around. He's just come off a win off another legend, Tony Ferguson. Recently, he beat Ron Dorset, and it seems like his career is getting a second win. He's now number 13 in the division. So I'm really looking forward to him taking on Jalen Turner, who's an upcoming fighter in that division as well. So that's another fight that's going to be very, very interesting, because where does Bobby Green go after he wins this? If he wins this, where does he go after that? Does he go top 5? Does he get to call out the champion? What does he do? So that's a fun lightweight fight.
Yeah, I've got a bit of mixed emotions about that fight after seeing a couple of interviews with Jalen, with Turner, and Turner's. It almost seems like he got forced to take the fight. He doesn't want to be there. In a couple of interviews that I saw, where he just doesn't seem as motivated as he has been in the past. I also saw him, reference to some emotions he had after his Dan Hooker fight, and seeing him in the hospital and realizing that he's done that damage to that man and he has to go back to his family. So it's a weird. I'm a huge Bobby Green fan, and I think the Dan Hooker fight would have been crazy. I think it would have been fight of the year contender. Turner is also a super, super game guy usually, and I was super excited to see them match. After watching a couple of interviews, I thought, wow, I'm not sure about the mental space of Turner coming into this fight. But we'll see when those cage doors closes. You've got a job to do, and if you can make that mind switch, it's going to be an amazing fight. In terms of what's for Bobby Green after this, that's a very difficult question. He's got a couple of options of taking some good fights, making some good money, and riding into the sunset, or is he going to push himself to the top and take on the most daunting fights as quickly as possible to get that title shot? So it's going to be interesting to see the route he takes if he wins this fight. So I'm just a happy guy. I'm just happy to compete and to make money and move on. Or is he really, really going to push for that title shot? His brand, the Bobby Green brand, has grown so much over the past couple of years. And I think he's really cashing in on that. And it really seems like he's enjoying the sport more than ever. So I'm not sure which way that's going to go after, and what is the right move for him business-wise and career-wise. So we'll see what route he takes if he wins this fight. If he's going to ask for top contenders, if he's going to try and move himself up that division to get to that top fight. It's a scary thing to think that he's felt what Islam can do. He knows, he fought that man.
Yep.
So, and it wasn't fun. So it's difficult to say, well, where's he at? Is he just happy to still compete and operate and get paid in the sport that he loves the most? And you can see he's having this great time. So I don't know if the prospect of fighting Islam again really excites him, or he understands, well, no, I don't want that fight again. And only he can answer that. So that's going to be up to him, and it's going to be interesting on the route he takes if he wins this fight.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. Like you're saying, and like we chatted about before, the mental space, and that's really what you've spoken about with regards to the two fighters. The mental space you have coming into a fight really determines how that fight is going to go. If you're Jalen Turner and you're not really into it, chances are you might lose the fight. If you're Bobby Green and you're having fun because you almost have nothing to lose, you might most likely win. The same way he's just beaten Tony Ferguson. He's just being Grant Dawson. He's on a tear. So yeah, it's very interesting how their two different mental spaces will collide within this match.
I think it's a very, like, it's going to be a turning point for Turner. You know, it's going to be interesting to see if the whole goal is to walk in there at 50% of yourself and still get the job done. You know, we have a job to do. 99.999% of the population who has a 60% day at the office has a 60% day at the office. That's not how it works for fighters. If you have a 60% day at the office as a fighter, you can really get hurt, you can really get in trouble, and that can have serious psychological effects after the fight. So I'm interested to see how he's going to take up the challenge now. He's going to manage the emotions that he's going through. Is he going to channel it in the right way? Is he going to channel it wrong? Is he going to ignore it? So I'm really interested to see the body language on weigh-in day, fight day, and everything that, you know, goes with that. And to see how can he perform if he's not feeling all himself. Because the reality is, us as fighters, someday is going to be someday. You're going to walk in there and you're not going to feel yourself. You're going to have an injury in the camp. You're not going to be able to wrestle for a couple of weeks, or whatever the adversity is that we go through as fighters. So he's obviously going through a bit of adversity, but this can go one of two ways. This can either make him or break him. At the end of the day, no growth has ever come from a place of comfortability, and he's uncomfortable now. So this is a really good opportunity for him to grow and you know, burst out of his seams and become, you know, just elevate to the next level through dealing with this adversity and becoming better. So I'm interested to see how that's going to go and how he's going to handle himself and how he's going to channel all of that emotions, because it's a difficult thing, but it's definitely an important thing to go through as an athlete. Preferably not on the UFC and the big stage for the first time, but I'm sure it's not his first time having to deal with these things. You know, he's a veteran. So I'm really interested to see the body language and the mentality he comes out with and how he approaches the fight.
That's quite interesting, because our next topic is talking about exactly that, you know, not being on the biggest stage before you get to actually understand how to handle yourself mentally. Now, we were recently at Versus Fight Night 7, the last Versus Fight Night of this year. And honestly, I had a great time. It was my first Versus Fight Night, and it was high quality. Honestly, it was a really, really good event. We had a chat with Cameron Simon, who basically said, listen, with what Versus is and where Versus is, it's the top amateur promotion in the country, looking to go pro. I mean, it was phenomenal. What are your thoughts on the Versus promotion? Obviously, you were ringside, you were coaching. How was Versus for you?
No, I've been to every event since the first event, and what's really, as a coach who take athletes to these events, it was so cool from the beginning to understand that the goal and the vision of the promotion was to put the athletes first. Specifically amateur promotions, you've got amateur athletes coming in, putting on these entertaining fights, and you know, trying to build themselves and elevate themselves. And it's frustrating to see amateur promotions taking advantage of that and not trying to, and that they don't understand that, hey, these are amateur athletes, I understand, but they're still the core of your business. They're still the core of South African MMA. And we need to look after these guys. We need to promote these guys. We need to teach them how to be a professional. We have to give them opportunity to be in front of a camera before they turn pro and all of that. And that's something Versus really, really understands. And it's something that they've been working really hard to get across, to not only look after the athletes, but also try and educate them in terms of, listen, when you go pro, you need to understand that you yourself is a brand, and you need to build this brand so you can attract, you know, sponsorship, and you can create hype, and you can create. The fight game, unfortunately, has never been about the best guys fighting the best guys. Luckily in MMA, it's a lot better than in boxing, but there's still this big factor of hype and about how you present yourself and how comfortable are you in front of a camera. And that's important things that Versus has been trying to educate the athletes on from the beginning. And that's the biggest thing about Versus. And then on top of that, the production quality is crazy. The way they do the event is crazy, and I can't believe I'm walking into an amateur event every time I walk in there. The way we get looked after, the way the athletes get looked after, the way the sponsors get looked after, the passion from Jan and Cammy. It's just a privilege to be there every single time. And they had an amazingly successful event. I was privileged enough that one of my athletes won the belt in the main event. So it was an awesome night for us and for CIT and for Versus.
Name drop. Who's your athlete? Let's find out. Let's give him the platform now because, like you said, this is where it starts.
Tapelo Talaga / Siabi. I'm not sure what he goes by anymore, but he's been with me for so long. Tapelo has been, when I got Tapelo, he was just a hobbyist. He started working with me. I was really, really hard on him in the beginning because I saw the potential and I needed him to understand that. After a couple of months of really training with me, and he started believing in himself, and he's really been putting the work in. And he won the bantamweight. He was bantamweight champion. He lost the title in a 5-round war. He came back. He won the title again through pure dedication and just hair on his teeth without quitting. So he's an awesome athlete, awesome young man, smart, educated, and doesn't have to be a fighter. He's got everything it takes to make it in any industry out there, but he really wants to fight. And we could see that, and that was transparent at the event. So I was super happy with his performance, and I'm super happy for him to go through the adversity of losing that title, grinding back, and then getting it back. So Tapelo will definitely be moving into the pro scene really, really soon. Then I'll hand him over to the godfather himself, Mr. Morne Visser, and then it'll be on to the next chapter of his career.
And I think that's something that's been quite interesting, is that quite a few of the athletes that have been champions or that have gone through Versus end up at the EFC, because like you said, they then learn the pedigree, they then get the right sort of record, they then understand what needs to happen for them to get into a pro promotion. We've got, for example, Ntando Zondi, who's going to be going pro. We've got Sylvester Alistair Kunena, who just fought in the fight of the night at the last EFC. So, like you're saying, Versus is doing all the right things where it comes to amateur promotion, when it comes to amateur fighters, and giving them the right sort of insight to the industry before going pro.
Look, that was a big thing for us, coming through the industry at the time when we were amateurs. Like there was no exposure at all. Like you were fighting in crazy venues, nobody cared, nobody was there. So by the time you go pro and you get taken up into this professional system, it's a culture shock. It's almost like, what am I doing here? I don't like the new pro promotion specifically Versus, like, they're really giving these guys a platform and educating them on what it takes to be a pro fighter, not just the skill level and the fighting itself, everything around being a pro fighter, because that was a real shock to all of us back in the day who moved from the amateur scene to the pros. Suddenly having cameras in your face and big lights and big venues and a lot of people, which we weren't used to. So that was a big factor, specifically when I turned pro, that I wasn't prepared for. And all of the guys coming through the ranks now, thanks to promotions like Versus and Ace, who did their first event, is, they're really giving these guys the exposure that they deserve, and they teaching them how to conduct themselves in a professional setting. So I'm super grateful and happy that my guys have the opportunity to compete there and learn what they need to learn.
You mentioned Ace. Ace Fighting Championship had their first event this past weekend, and based on what I saw, unfortunately I couldn't be there. It was a good event, another amateur promotion, but they're taking more the line of a one championship than an MMA organization, which is very interesting because there are no other one championship multi-sport type of promotions that are going on, especially in the amateur side. So it's nice to see that there's a new promotion that's allowing amateurs from different combat sports to come together to then be champions, to then get the exposure, to then move into, say, for example, your submission kings or your international competitions, whether it be grappling, MMA, kickboxing, or one of the other martial arts. So I think phenomenal what Mark Penn and his team are doing with Ace Fighting Championship.
100%. And the format is unusual for South African MMA. but it was awesome. It was so cool to see the different disciplines and the quality of the Muay Thai fights and the Jiu-Jitsu fights were awesome. I was on the edge of my seat for every single fight, and Mark and his team really did an amazing job. They really made everyone feel like professionals. They gave everyone everything they needed. It's an amazing venue, fighting at the UFC Performance Institute. Specifically, Ryan de Jager, my athlete, was fighting in the main event. He'll also be turning pro early next year and having opportunity to fight as an amateur in the cage and in the venue that you're going to be competing as a pro. I think that is a huge thing, and it takes a lot of pressure off. So when you're making your pro debut, I've been here before. I've been in this venue before. I've fought in this cage before. It was so professionally done. And Mark and his team did such a good job. I was super impressed with not only the entertainment value, but the professionalism from the whole team and how they did it. So shout out to Mark and his team and the Ace team, and congratulations on your first event. I hope there's so many more.
I'm pretty sure there are going to be a lot more because, like you said, that event was professional. It was phenomenal. Next up, Stephan, we have what is one of my favorite segments of the show, Fighter of the Week.
It's time!
So in this segment, essentially across any combat sports, whoever's making it for you in this current week or whatever period, where it might be longer than a week, who is your favorite fighter of this week? I'll go first, simply because, well, I'm taking some time, and you can go second. But I think for me, my favorite fighter of this week is the man we just talked about, Mark Hulme. Why? Apart from setting up Ace Fighting Championship, which is now doing amazing things in the fight scene in South Africa, he's also fighting in an invitational out in Luanda, Angola, I think it's tomorrow, 2nd of December, against Rovan de Beer, who's another one of the fighters that I enjoy chatting to. He recently obviously lost the title fight recently, but, Rovan's amazing, absolutely amazing. And also, Demart is an Aries French champion. He's an international superstar. So for me, for him to have done or doing everything he's doing on the African continent, internationally in the MMA space, Fighter of the Week, Mark Hulme.
He's definitely right up there. He's such an awesome guy, and he's such a passionate guy, and he's really about promoting the sport, and he's really about growing the sport and bringing the right people into the sport and getting them involved. He's such an icon in Africa and worldwide. So I think that's a great nomination. But for me, the fighter of the week is none other than Dricus Du Plessis, who will be fighting for that middleweight belt. Camp is in full swing. So he's the fighter of the week for me because I get to see him smash it every single day, and to see his motivation and to see his work ethic and what he's trying to do for South African MMA and for our team specifically, it's a no-brainer for me. The Mark very close second, but still Knox is number one in my eyes, fighter of the week.
Phenomenally, that literally leads right into our next topic. But I just want to say, yes, what Still Knox is doing, the fact that he's literally put South African MMA, African MMA on the international stage, on the international map. He's an amazing fighter. He speaks right. I agree with you 100%. Having met him at the CIT gym when we came through for the interviews last time, he's such a nice guy, down to earth, and works hard. The whole time we were there, he was working hard. He wasn't just lazing about, he was pushing. So yeah, phenomenal nomination. Still Knox. We're looking forward to the 20th of January.
Yeah, no, it's going to be awesome. And that work ethic isn't something new. He's been grinding for years, since long before anybody knew his name. He's been working for that goal. And I remember, we've been friends. He was my amateur coach, and he engineered my amateur career and got me to where I am today. And since then, he's just always been such an inspiration. He's been leading by example since day one. All of us, he pulls everyone up, and all of us realize, like, listen, if this guy can do it, we can do it. If he can train 6 hours a day, I can train 6 hours a day. If he can get everything so perfect, professionally sorted, right through from the fight-specific stuff to the non-fight-specific stuff, he's really an inspiration, which a lot of people don't see those things. They see him compete and they see what he does for the sport and the exposure he brings. But he's so inspirational on a different level as well. The way he conducts himself, and we've been friends, and he's coached me long before he was cool. He's not changed a bit. He's this exact same person he was before he even won an EFC belt. He just loves fighting. He loves training, and he's one of the most determined people. Scratch that. He's the most determined person and motivated person I've ever met in my life. And, he changes lives every day. I don't think that's his goal. I don't think he realizes how much he inspires people. Even people really close to him that, we've been friends for years, he still inspires me every single day. So, I'm super excited for that fight. Everything's going well. He's positive, he's motivated, and he is a grinder. Nobody outworks Dricus. Nobody outworks him. And that's going to show on the 20th of January when he's going to be the first ever South African world champion. He's going to bring that belt home.
And like he said, he's going to be the African champion. He's going to be the champion that brings the belt back home to Africa to sleep under the African sky every single day. And I'm really looking forward to him defending it at Loftus, to be honest. I don't even care who it's against, but I have Loftus in my vision.
I've been dreaming about Loftus since, before he fought Darren Till, I was so years ago, 5-6 years ago, me and Dricus were waking up at 4 a.m. to watch these guys fight. And every time afterwards we would have these conversations like, nah, it's just a question of time you're going to be there. It's just, and then next thing you know, he's there and he's destroying and he's shocking the world over and over and over. And when he fought Darren Till, when he got that call, first big name, a household name, I remember calling him and I was like, yes, boo. I can't. This is something we spoke into existence years and years ago, and it almost felt like we were in a movie, and it wasn't the end of the movie. The movie's still going, and it's not stopping. It's not going to stop soon. I believe Dricus will be double division champion in the UFC. Will go down as a Hall of Famer, and he will be a South African sport legend for the rest of time.
I agree. It's going to be phenomenal to see exactly how that fight pans out. I have watched an interview with him, and like you said, we know what Sean Strickland brings. We saw what Sean did against Izzy. Sean's also a great fighter. He's very aware, but with what Dricus brings to the table, we don't see it going any other way. And we're really looking forward to his amazing career to come as the middleweight champion of the UFC.
Yeah, only the middleweight champion of the UFC for now. That'll not be the only belt he takes. I can promise you that.
Ooh, I like the sound of that.
No, he's on another level, man. He's so motivated, and there's nothing else for him, and nothing else, tickles his interest. He's a fighter, and he's a dog, and he's the biggest dog in there. So it's going to be an awesome fight that he has a guy like Sean Strickland who's going to come in front of him and. They're going to throw down. They're going to see who's the biggest dog in there. But I guarantee people don't understand. And there's been a lot of, in his UFC career, there's been so much criticism he'll make it to the UFC, he'll never be ranked. Then he gets ranked. They're like, but he'll never beat Darren Till. Then he beats Darren Till and say, oh no, but it was a washed up Darren Till. He beats Derek Brunson, is like, yeah, but he's old. And then he beat Robert Whittaker, and everyone was like, shit.
He didn't just beat Robert Whittaker, and that was what was amazing. He didn't just beat Robert Whittaker. He kicked his ass.
He destroyed him. He destroyed him. He made one of the best MMA athletes in the history of the sport look like they were not supposed to be in the same organization. And I think people really then started to realize, whoa, there's something else going on here. It's, and that's all 100% credit to Coach Morne Visser. He's the godfather. He understands the sport to a level that people do not understand. If he's in your corner, he just brings something else to the table. He understands how to win fights. Irrelevant of the skill level, irrelevant of the cardio or the fitness level, Coach Morne Visser understands fighting to a level that's very difficult to understand. Even if you are in the industry, you are a fighter or you are a coach. If you sit down and you have a conversation with that man, you understand why Dricus and Cammy and the rest of CIT is having the success we're having. That's all. That he's the only man that deserves any credit for that. And he does it for also just out of passion. He's such, he looks after us. He's an amazing guy. He looks after everyone, and he's just so passionate about the sport. So that's a joker that we have in our back pocket always that people don't understand, and he definitely doesn't get enough credit for what he does.
Well, we're looking forward to hopefully speaking to him one day. One other thing that's been very interesting that recently happened in the MMA space internationally was the acquisition of Bellator by PFL, which basically created a global MMA powerhouse, which we're thinking will most likely be in the position to actually finally be a promotion that competes with the UFC, because quite frankly, UFC has a monopoly on MMA internationally. Even if you look at one is in the same type of organization. As we discussed, one is more of a multi-sport, multi-combat sport organization. It's not MMA focused. And the UFC is the biggest MMA focused organization in the world. So to have this merger is something very, very interesting. How do you see this going? Because, I mean, we've got MVP, their former champion, coming across to the UFC fighting against Kevin Trailblazer Holland, loudmouth himself. So, I mean, it's phenomenal. Derek Brunson's gone across to the PFL. Francis Ngannou's gone across to the PFL. So there's been a lot of movement between the two organizations.
Yeah, so PFL has been doing a really, really great job. And everybody thought when they started out they're going to be a fly-by-night promotion. Paying these guys $1 million for a title fight is crazy. That's not going to be sustainable. They're not going to make it. It's crazy. What they're doing is stupid. And they just kept on putting high-quality fights. I think it was a very smart move not to take the approach where you have a champion and everyone fights up to fight the champion. The way they do it with the seasons, the regular seasons, where you get into the season, you fight for the title. When you win the title, you compete again for that title. You're not the defending champion sitting on your throne waiting to defend. That kept the sport really, really active and really made it interesting to me to watch. And when I heard of the acquisition with Bellator, I was super excited. I'm not sure what their plan is. I'm not sure what they would like to do with the promotion. As I understand, they are going to run it as a separate promotion for now, and until they decide to do something else. But it really shows that they are a powerhouse in the industry, and they look after their fighters. They've got a lot of financial support, from the Middle East and everywhere else, and the way they're doing things are just on another level. They're making smart business decisions, which a lot of people don't agree with. Signing Jake Paul and this, that, and the other. But I really think it's been really, really calculated, smart business decisions. And you say in the near future that they're going to be competing with the UFC. I think they already are. I think they're at a point where, these guys in the PFL are getting exposure where, on UFC level, and people know these guys are getting paid properly, and they're growing at a tempo which is difficult to understand. So I'm super excited about that. They're also, they're not done expanding. They've got so much plans to expand even more, and put up promotions. They're looking at Africa. They're looking at Eastern Europe. They're looking, they're just ready to grow and ready to change the sport as we know it. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, but I believe they set They 100%, established themselves in the industry. They've earned the respect in the industry. And I think they have one of the smartest marketing teams out there. So I think it's exciting stuff. I mean, I'm interested to see what they're going to do, use Bellator for as a feeding ground, maybe to the PFL like one with Pancras. Or if they're going to merge it eventually and absorb all the athletes and make it one big promotion. But the fact that they were able to acquire it shows you the influence they have in the industry and what a big powerhouse of promotion they are.
No, that's quite true. And I think from my perspective, it has a lot to do with Francis Ngannou, because once he moved over, the spotlight that was on him as the heavyweight champion, which Dana White said meant nothing. If he's gone, he's gone. If he goes to Bellator, so what? If he goes to ONE, so what? The spotlight that he honestly brought, and then fighting Tyson Fury, just literally opened it up. We had Kylian Mbappe sitting ringside at the last PFL event where Cedric Dombe won, sitting right there. We've got one of the highest paid soccer players in the world. If you know him, you now know PFL. So it's 100% what you're saying. There's now this spotlight where they are essentially competing with the UFC. Hence, we're even talking about them at this level. So yeah, it's going to be phenomenal to see how they use this merger to grow what they're doing, to grow, as you earlier said about versus helping fighters, actually being there for the fighters, because that's really what their core seems to be, is that they're there for the fighters as well. Not just in paycheck, but they're there to look after fighters. But to see how that ethos carries through the industry, and heck, for all we know, it might end up in changing how the UFC sees it and how the UFC approaches fighter care as well, because we all know that that's a big issue in the UFC. So yeah, I agree with you 100%. It's a phenomenal acquisition. It's a phenomenal business deal that they've done. And I'm very excited to see where all this traction is going to end them up in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, what they're doing that's really, really smart. So they're not trying to say, oh, UFC is bad, we better. They're not trying to steal fans that way. They're trying to find avenues where there are untapped markets. There are, a guy like Jake Paul brings a ludicrous amount of eyes to the sport that has never been interested in MMA. But now they're going to watch PFL, that's why. A guy like Kylian Mbappe brings, as you said, if you know Kylian Mbappe, you know PFL. That's bringing, that's an untapped market. That's people that aren't watching our sports. And I think they're taking a really, really smart approach to bringing, not taking eyes from one promotion to another, but bringing new eyes to the sport as a whole. And they making them fans. At the end of the day, our sport is still growing. We still have a lot to do, and PFL is they're making the right move. So this Bellator acquisition, I think, is a very, very smart move. I think they have a lot of options to not only monetize on it, but to build their brand. And it's going to be interesting to see the route that they take with Bellator as a PFL promotion now.
Stephan, I think that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for the amazing conversation. I think we'll definitely be doing it again soon, because, it's very important for us to talk about the athletes, the things happening, for a lot of people to know. And with someone like you who's right at the coalface, you're right in front of it, you're ringside, you're cage side, definitely amazing. Thank you so much for your contribution.
Thank you so much for having me, man. And it's my second time on. I feel at home now. So thank you guys for having me. It's a privilege, and thank you for what you guys are doing for not only South African MMA, but for MMA in general, and bringing more eyes and to the sport, and to specifically local MMA. So thank you guys for being at Versus and looking after or giving exposure to the amateur guys and all of that. It's good to see that our sport's on a good trajectory, and guys like you guys are at the forefront of it and helping everyone out. So thank you guys as well.
Stephan, thank you so much. And until we speak again, let's kick him in the head.
Kick him in the head. Cheers.